Welcome to the Rational Optimist Podcast, your weekly dose of breakthroughs and insights that should be front page news. Coming up, Steven will tell us what it's like to ride in a car with no driver. Nuclear energy just had its best week in 50 years, and we look at new evidence that shows capitalism is great for the environment. You better believe it. This is the Rational Optimist Podcast. I'm Dan Steinhardt. He's Stephen McBride. Stephen, please tell me all about your Waymo ride.
Amazing, life-changing. So people might not know that Waymo has this, basically it's like Uber, but every car has no driver in it. So they operate, I think, 200 cars or so in San Francisco. They're also in Phoenix. They're also in Austin, where we were. But in San Francisco, anyone can just download the app and hail one of the cars within the city of San Francisco. It was incredible. You get in, the thing welcomes you by name, you press the start button, and it's just so crazy to see the wheel just turn itself, the steering wheel turn itself. There's nobody in there. It says this little thing when you get in, it says, this ride may feel futuristic, we'll do all the driving. Why it's so important and why I think this is going to change the world is that it's in your face innovation. It's not some app that you have to download and that kind of feels cool. It's not even AI that, like, yeah, it's great, but only if you really know about computers. This is in your face. A car is driving itself. The most tangible, futuristic experience I've ever had.
Is it weird? Do you forget at some point that you're in a car with no driver? Or is you just like waiting to crash the whole time?
I encourage everyone to get one of these as soon as possible. Dan, you should book your flights to San Francisco now, simply because within 6 months, or say after your third or fourth, trip in one of these, it's just going to be completely normal. Our kids are going to be like what? Like, this is what cars always did, right? So I would get the wow factor now, because it's going to go very quickly.
So we saw these things driving around Austin, and we tried to take one in Austin, but we got waitlisted when we tried to download the app. So San Fran's the only place where they're live.
I believe so. The only place you can go, and well, I actually had to go with an American because my app store was stuck on the European app store, which I guess Waymo is too dangerous for Europeans to download or something like that. So I couldn't download it. But yes, if you are an American resident and you have the American app store on your phone, anyone can just download, and then you go into San Francisco and they can take you anywhere in San Francisco.
How much did it cost?
I think it was like $25 for probably 20 minutes or so. So I believe it is a little bit more expensive than an Uber. But yeah, it's kind of worth it.
But you're far less likely to die. You're far less likely to get in a car crash, right? You pay the extra.
Yeah, listen, I like talking to Uber drivers, but yeah, the silence, and again, like, why does this all matter? Because you're riding in a car with eyes in the back of its head. I think it has 29 cameras or sensors. It's so cool seeing the whizzing thing on the top of the car. It looks like a crown. I think it's the LiDAR detector. So this is why it matters. I think it's going to save tens of thousands of lives.
So is this like the big bang moment for self-driving cars? Because we've been hearing about them for years and years and years, and they've never really come. But now they're live in San Fran. Is it, if we fast forward a year from today, are they going to be in all over the place or what?
So clearly the technology works. What I would say is the rollout is going to be extremely slow, because even one crash, right? 42,000 Americans died on the roads last year. If we get down to one death, but that death is caused by a self-driving car, you know what the papers are going to be like the next day. So I think the rollout is going to be slower than you can imagine. I also believe that Waymo, it maps the locations it operates in down to the centimeter. So you'd imagine that it's going to be in very specific locations, but we haven't even talked about Tesla, which is kind of, I think though Tesla is going to roll out its robotaxi service much faster. So I think we've been waiting a long time, and it's finally kind of here.
So talk about the key difference just quickly, if you don't mind, about Waymo's tech versus Tesla's tech. So my understanding is that, like you said, Waymo can only drive on pre-mapped roads, whereas a full self-driving Tesla, once it's up and running, you can just drop the car anywhere and it can figure out where to go.
Right. So Waymo relies on LiDAR and radar and all these different sensing technologies, and it maps the locations it's in down to the centimeter or the inch or whatever. Tesla, meanwhile, said, "Hey, we actually want to kind of, we don't think that's going to work long term. We're just going to rely on vision." So Tesla basically just relies on the eyes that's in the car. And recently they made a huge change. Before, they had 300,000 hard-coded rules. So when you see a red light, stop. When you see a green light, go. If you see a cyclist, slow down. You imagine your brain trying to remember all 300,000 of those rules. It's just very, very difficult. And that basically made the technology worse. Recently, they made a huge change, which said, get rid of all the hand-coded rules, the human-coded rules. Tesla did. And let's just rely on the AI in the car, the vision. And Elon Musk just announced on the earnings call that the disengagements, the amount of times a human has to take control of the wheel in a Tesla, 100x improvement since January, 10 months. So this is a huge change, and I think it's happened slower than anyone thought it was going to, and now I think for Tesla it's going to happen faster than anyone believes.
Well, my one worry is the only thing juicier than a headline about a self-driving car causing an accident is a headline about an Elon Musk owned self-driving car causing an accident.
Oh, that is juicy. That's gold for the media companies. Listen, I think this is actually why Waymo was incredible. I can't wait to take another one. Life-changing experience. Having said that, I actually think Tesla will be the ultimate winner because Elon will have the cojones to push back if something bad happens. I don't think Google-owned Waymo will. So I'm betting on Elon long-term, although I really hope Waymo succeeds, and it was incredible. I mean, you sent me some articles about how parents in SF are kind of tasking Waymo with picking their kids up from school and taking the soccer practice and stuff. That's only going to continue. All right, moving on. You and I have been investing in nuclear for over 6 years, and I don't think we've seen a week as exciting in the nuclear industry ever than we saw last week. So tell people what's going on, its significance.
The three of the biggest, richest, cash flow gushing companies in the world, in the history of the world actually, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, are all going big on nuclear. So Microsoft, we talked about a few weeks ago, they're going to be buying all the power from the restarted 3 Mile Island nuclear plant, which is supposed to start producing power again by 2028. Meanwhile, last week, we learned that Google has agreed to purchase nuclear energy from an SMR, small modular reactors. We could talk about what they are in a second, being developed by a startup called Kairos Power. And Amazon is investing in the development of small modular reactors by another startup called X Energy. So nuclear power, just to back up, we're huge supporters because it is clean energy. It produces no carbon. It is efficient. It could be cheap if the regulators got out of the way. And it's essentially been frozen for the last 50 years. Development of nuclear and innovation in nuclear has been frozen. We'll lay 80% of the blame at the feet of the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which was effectively anti-nuclear and didn't approve any new designs for the first 50 years of their existence. But to be fair, 20% of the blame is probably that there wasn't the demand there. There wasn't, you could make the argument that we had all the power we needed. So like, why innovate in nuclear? We're good to go on our energy. But now with the huge power needs coming down the pike for AI, for these big tech companies, they know they're going to need more power, and they want it to be clean power. So they're investing in nuclear, and they've completely broken the logjam that nuclear has been for the last 50 years.
Exactly. This is an insight that the CEO of Allo Atomics, Matt, shared with us last week when we toured the factory in Austin, and we can show a picture of the factory on the screen. Yeah, it's easy to think from the outside the regulators are to blame, but it's really the customers has been a huge problem as well, right? As you said, we have all the energy we need. Why bother? For the first time really ever, nuclear energy now has customers that are willing to sign 20-year agreements. And I also met the 20-year agreements and pay a huge sum up front for that energy and buy the energy at above cost. So I was talking to the CEO of another nuclear startup last week, Julia DeWall, who runs Antares, which is essentially building micro reactors for the US military, reactors that you can take underwater and you can put on the top of Mount Everest. And she said that these agreements that are being signed now, Microsoft and Amazon and Google, they're willing to pay 3 to 5x the going rate for nuclear energy. That's how valuable, clean, reliable, safe energy is to these guys. And when you have that, you better believe every nuclear company in the world is trying to sell these guys and others nuclear power. It also has another effect. Hey, if the biggest companies, if the most successful companies in the world are willing to go into nuclear, why can't we do it? It's a huge signaling difference. It's just a complete change than what we had before.
The SMR technology is really exciting. So we were in Austin last week and we stopped by Allo Atomics for a tour of their factory, and they're just getting started. So their factory's empty, but their business plan is to build up to 100 small nuclear reactors a year. And unlike the huge smokestacks you see, the gigantic nuclear facilities, like the old school nuclear facilities, they're going to be able to build these in a factory. They're modular. You build the different parts, put them together, ship them out on the back of a truck. Matt, the CEO, said that the average one will produce 10 megawatts of electricity, which can power like a town of 5 to 10,000 homes. And they've already got contracts from a couple of towns it was either Iowa or Idaho. Sorry, Matt, I don't remember which one, but yeah, they've got the customers, they've got the tech, they've got a motivated team. It's pretty cool to see what they're doing.
For the first time in 50 years, we have innovation in nuclear energy. It's so good to see. And may long it continue. I was actually talking to there was so many nuclear CEOs last week. Another guy from Last Energy, which is helping essentially build SMRs in Poland and the UK and other locations. And it's just so exciting to see entrepreneurs pushing the envelope in this space. It really is.
Did you say where you were last week, just for the listeners?
I was in Austin with you, visiting the new UATX University, but I was also in San Francisco at the Roots of Progress conference. So got to talk to everyone from Patrick Collison to Tyler Cowan to Dwarkesh Patel to Julia and Brad, nuclear CEOs. So very exciting. Very exciting. More in the Rational Optimist diary soon.
All right, let's talk about nuclear's biggest competitor in producing clean energy. That would be solar. Growth in solar power is going parabolic. We'll put this chart on the screen. It shows the world installed capacity of solar power generating panels, and it was pretty much flat for 2017, 2018, 2019, but something big has changed in the last year. You could see for yourself, growth is growing absolutely parabolic. Tell us why this is happening and why it's important.
It has a lot to do with the IRA Act that was passed in America, which essentially gave subsidies to businesses and people installing solar panels. But more so, the technology has just gotten so much better that it actually makes sense to do solar now. So we've heard the pushbacks against solar, right? It's one, it doesn't work when the sun doesn't shine, and two, it costs a lot. And those are certainly true. But another complementary technology is solving solar's nighttime problem, which is batteries. So now we have these huge giant batteries the size of shipping containers, that again, we'll put another chart on the screen here. You can see they're growing even faster than solar power. And what these do is that they basically keep the lights on after the sun goes down. So in places like California, the solar panels suck up a huge amount of energy during the day. The batteries store it for nighttime, and the batteries with that stored power are powering up to 1 in 5 homes in California during the nighttime. So I think
so let's put the California chart on the screen now. This shows the solar power generated by California by time of day. You can see the sun only shines between 6 a.m. and 7 p.m. roughly. That's when all the solar power is generated. And then the orange slice is batteries. That's when the sun's down, not producing energy, but we're cracking open the piggy bank, as you've said, of the energy that we stored during the day to power the California homes. The important thing about this chart is those batteries didn't exist 3 years ago. So imagine what this chart's going to look like in 3 more years or 5 more years. It's conceivable that solar could meet the vast majority of California's power demands. And California's not even number one in solar. Texas is.
Right. And I think that is an important point, right? The solar and the batteries have really taken off, but it really depends where you are. So I don't, it's going to be a while before Canada or North Dakota or Norway is powering itself on 100% solar. But for sunny locations or for anyone near the equator, this is a pretty big deal. And I think it's time for a lot of people to rethink what they knew about solar. Because I feel a lot of people are still in this, mindset that it's just a propped up government scam, right? That doesn't work.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate side effect that when you get massive subsidies towards an industry, it makes people skeptical of it, and rightly so. And there was a lot of reason to be skeptical of solar for a long time. And I mean, it's still very expensive. It's still the most expensive of the big energy sources we have, but it's the trajectory that's important.
Right.
It's the price of solar has declined 99.6% over the last 50 years or so. It's becoming cost competitive, and if you extrapolate that out for another 5 or 10 years, you could easily see a near future where solar is the least expensive form of electricity.
Exactly. So today, if you just did generate solar power and use it straight away, it's extremely cheap. It's actually the cheapest form of electricity. The problem is that still, yes, we have the batteries, but when you add the batteries, and even then, you kind of have to add in backup gas peaking plants that kick in when the batteries run out. That's what really adds the cost to solar energy. So still today, all in costs, solar is still more expensive than natural gas and coal and nuclear. But again, you said the trajectory. Solar costs down 99% in the last 30 years. Battery costs down 99% in the last 30 years. And this trend of solar and batteries getting cheaper and more efficient is actually speeding up as we produce more solar and batteries. So again, just zoom out 5, 6 years, 10 years. You would imagine that solar is at least cost competitive with all the other forms of energy. And I think, we can't write off solar any longer.
Yeah, that's important. What you just said about cost declines continue to accelerate. You would think it would be reasonable to think that the low-hanging fruit has been picked and that declines in the cost of solar may eventually stop. And maybe eventually they will stop because there's a physical limit to how much energy you can harvest from the sun. But at least for now, the costs are declining rapidly. In 2023 alone, the cost of solar declined by half.
Right. Incredible. And the thing I'll say about this is that energy sources are like this weird tribal team sport. Like, you have to pick a side. Don't pick a side. We need all the energy we can get. We need all the cheap, clean energy we can get, because with that, that's the base of human progress and innovation, and it allows you to do incredible things that were impossible before. So more energy, please, of all kinds.
We're on team nuclear. We're on team solar. We're on team natural gas. We're not on team coal. You don't have to be on team coal, but all the other ones are great.
We can get rid of the coal. But that's the problem. It's still extremely cheap. So yeah, it's go team energy. Go team energy abundance. All right. You've seen these images, of course. You've seen these images. So around 2 weeks ago, SpaceX launched the largest rocket in history into orbit, and then it caught it with a pair of chopsticks, a pair of giant mechanical arms. So I'm going to show you 4 pictures right now on screen that just show how amazing what SpaceX pulled off is. You can see the rocket, various pictures of the rocket launching, and then this big, huge, giant tower catching it. You can even see how big these arms were, because one of the pictures has 2 people standing on top of the giant mechanical arms, just to put into perspective how amazing this was. So tell us what happened and why it matters, Dan.
So the pictures don't even do it justice. You got to watch the video if you haven't watched the video.
We should have been there. We have to be there for the next one.
We should be there for the next one. We're a little late on this because we didn't record last week, but it's an 11 million pound rocket booster that they caught with these metal arms. Nothing even remotely close has ever been done before. So SpaceX first figured out how to catch the smaller boosters. Now this is a bigger booster that they're figuring out how to catch. And Elon said by early 2025, they want to be able to catch the entire ship. And the reason it's important to be able to catch these things is because they're really, really expensive to build. And if you can't catch them, they just hit the ground and explode, and then you can't reuse them. And that's the reason why space travel has been so expensive up until now. But Elon Musk through SpaceX has been able to reduce the costs of space travel by 98% already. He thinks he can do a lot better, and it's all based on this technology of being able to reuse these rockets.
So it seems like we're kind of figuring out launch costs, right? We've reduced the costs by 98% or so, as you said. What comes next? I think that's what a lot of people are wondering. Like, why does space even matter? Why are we launching all these rockets into space?
There's a lot of stuff we can do in space that we can't do on Earth. I mean, for example, I don't remember the company that developed it, but one of the recent blockbuster drugs has been Keytruda. I believe it's a cancer drug, and certain tests on it were done in space on the International Space Station because the conditions there are the anti-gravity or the microgravity conditions there are such that you can do tests that you can't do on Earth. You've told me the story about scientists on the International Space Station were able to print a human knee meniscus, something that is much more difficult or impossible to do on Earth, because when you print a human organ on Earth, it's soft, it just collapses before it's mature. Whereas in microgravity, you can do that kind of thing. So, I mean, it's really it's going to be stuff that we can't even imagine yet. It's a whole new space economy. I don't know. What's your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two interesting things that we've already seen glimpses of is drugs, and now the next thing is semiconductors. So Varda is another company that's essentially launching these little capsules, little space drug factories up into orbit, and they launch it up, they make the drugs in the capsule, and it flies back down to Earth. I think that's incredible. We're going to see tons more innovation. You can make semiconductors. Essentially, the thing about semiconductors is on Earth, you need these clean rooms that even a single speck of dust in the room can ruin the silicon wafer that you make the computer chips from. Space is a natural clean room. Okay, there's basically no dust. It's cold, so I think we're going to see TSMC and Intel and Samsung absolutely make the chip in your next, or maybe iPhone 20 will be made partly on the moon. So I think stuff like that is incredibly exciting. But as you said, the biggest things we can't even imagine yet. And I think, you know what, the more I think about it, the more I think this is just going to create tons of jobs. You can imagine, maybe it's like 99-1 robots, but you can absolutely imagine chief engineers living on the moon, building computer chip factories in 15 years or something like that.
I wonder how much of the slashing of costs to get to space that Elon's done, I wonder how much of that has come from just the efficient way he runs his operations. So SpaceX has 13,000 employees. You compare that to a place like Bank of America, they've got 213,000 employees, and most of them are just shuffling paper. SpaceX 13,000 employees must be some of the most extraordinary, productive, genius engineers we have today. Incredible.
It's just such a mission-driven company, and you can imagine those guys are working 100-hour weeks every single week to make this happen. But I mean, talk about an outsized, effort. It's incredible. This might be. Do you think this is the most impressive thing humanity has ever done? The only thing I can think that comes close is TSMC fitting 20,000 transistors onto the width of a human hair.
I think probably going to the moon is more impressive, at least from like an obviously impressive standpoint. But reducing costs of things is so underrated because, like we said, it opens up entirely new industries. So I don't know. It could be like a butterfly flapping its wings, and the consequences of this 5 to 10 years down the road are bigger than anything we've done before.
Yeah, and when you think about when they went to the moon, that shouldn't have been possible with the technology they had at the time. Like the chip inside this iPhone right here is something like 5,000 times more powerful than the computer scientists or NASA used to get a man on the moon. Just incredible. Let's bring that back that energy.
All right, last topic for today. Capitalism is great for the environment. And if you don't believe me, take a look at this visualization from our friends at Our World in Data. Put this on the screen, please. This is a chart. The blue lines that are all going up is economic growth by country since 2005. And the red lines that are all going down is carbon emissions by country since 2005. And you'll notice they go in opposite directions. All of the countries on your screen right now, Ireland, Portugal, the United States, Estonia, Germany, France, there's a lot. They've grown their economies substantially while reducing carbon emissions. And the reason this is important is it's a narrative violation. It flies in the face of the conventional wisdom that says in order to grow your economy, you need to harm the environment, right?
100%. You know, I'm going to take this opportunity to dunk on the degrowthers, right? As you said,
they deserve it.
They deserve it. There's this narrative out there that the only way to solve climate change is to pull back, okay, to produce less, to consume less. Let's all stop working and, wash our clothes by hand, as one degrowther recently said. These charts completely do away with that myth. And what's going on here is that essentially over time, mostly rich countries figure out how to make things more efficiently using less resources. So whether that's, switching from coal to natural gas, which is much cleaner, or just little processes like figuring out how to make things for less in factories. So technology is going to solve climate change. That is what is going to solve. We could solve it tomorrow by building 1,000, 10,000 nuclear power plants and covering vast swaths of the land in solar panels. Solved. Technology, it would do that. It's not pulling back. It's not intentionally making ourselves poorer. That's not the solution.
So the richest companies, or the richest countries rather, have the cleanest environments. That's a really important thing to know and internalize and remember whenever you're encountered with arguments from degrowthers or anyone surrounding them, that we need to like pull back on growth and think about the environment. Economic growth and environmental cleanliness and improvement go hand in hand. They can and they often do go hand in hand. Conspicuously missing from this visualization are China and India.
Wonder why. Yeah, just to back up that point, you said the average American today, twice as wealthy as they were 50 years ago, yet they generate 30% fewer carbon emissions per person and 50% less land for their diet. That just goes back to getting more efficient. It's, hey, we basically have, we can basically make the crops grow faster and get suck more out of each piece of land. And the only reason go ahead.
Sorry, but forget the economic growth for a second. I think people would be surprised to just learn that carbon emissions are way down in most of the developed world, including and led by the United States.
Yeah, it's completely surprising. Completely. Even to people that are kind of in the know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think whenever we talk about degrowthers, I think people are like, yeah, you're choosing like this extreme outlier who's very easy to dunk on, which is true in some ways, but like guys like Paul Ehrlich, the population bomb guy, who was very wrong about his core thesis that humanity, that overpopulation was going to essentially do in humanity and we are all going to have mass starvation. Very, very wrong. He was on 60 Minutes last year. Like the representatives of this movement and their friends are still sort of respected, and we still turn to them for advice and ideas. And I would argue that we should not do that.
Dan, who's one of the most famous people in the world, who gets invited to the UN and all these exclusive places, Greta Thunberg, who champions this type of stuff. And just to be clear, we're not saying climate change isn't real or any of that stuff. We're saying the solution is hiding in plain sight. It's technology. We could solve this tomorrow. All this debating is wasted energy. You just use technology to solve it.
If there were a popularity contest, an election today between Greta Thunberg and Elon Musk, who wins?
It depends where you are. I think in Europe, Greta wins, and I think the Americans are still, you're going to back Elon. you're going to
The fact that it's even a conversation is a little scary.
a little alarming. All right. After all that alarming stuff, I want to finish with a dose of optimism. So, recently took tons of flights, and I am very happy that flying is now 39 times safer than it was 50 years ago. So, essentially, this is because of technological innovations like autopilot. They've transformed airplanes into very safe Airbuses. So I didn't know until recently that onboard AI, it helps planes fly around turbulent air, which doesn't make it safer, but also makes flying a lot more enjoyable. So new study by MIT researchers found the risk of dying from flying is now 1 in every 13.7 million passengers. So way down from what it was 50 years ago or even 10 years ago. So good news all around.
I love it. Now we need to take that AI life-saving principle and apply it to cars, right?
We do. And we need the supersonic jets as well. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. For viewers, for more conversations like this, hit the subscribe button. Talk to you next week, Stephen.
See you soon.